starting with speeches here. So let's just get into it. And Linda Scott, you're up first.
Hi, my name is Linda Scott. Steve's my big brother.
Thank you all for coming. I've been dreading and looking forward to this day very much. Kathy asked me to share with you something about Steve's faith, because that was very important to him, and it is to me too. So I'd like to start with a prayer first. Father, thank you for this opportunity for us to be together today. Thank you for everyone's safe travel. Please bless everyone. Give them peace in their hearts. Please bless Kathy and the girls, all the grandkids, all the family, and all his friends that were so important to him. Thank you for the opportunity to know him and what a blessing he was to us, and that he still is. He's still in our hearts. Thank you for just being with us and strengthening us and guiding us today. We ask this in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. I wanted to tell you, first of all, Steve and I had wonderful parents. My mom's here, and she and my dad were married for 45 years before my dad passed away in 99. And Steve spoke at his service, and I admired him so much for doing that, because I know it was really difficult for him. And now I'm in the same boat. Anyway, he and I were not particularly close as kids. We fought a lot. He was 4 years older, and I was the pesky little sister. And stuff like one time he dragged me around by my ankles, and I got rug burns on my back. And I'm sure I did nothing to deserve that. Nothing. Threw a football shoe at me once with cleats. I think he did, But we had fun too. We went to the Lake of the Ozarks a lot, and we played together down there and went fishing. He always, of course, loved all the outdoor stuff, the fishing and the hunting and all that. But anyway, I'm digressing. I wanted to tell you first that although we grew up going to church sporadically, it kind of didn't take. And so we both were pretty much atheists as young adults. And I think I probably went first, which has been about 40 years ago now. And then Steve became a Christian later too. I think we both were kind of looking. I don't know. But anyway, it was a touch point for us always throughout the years. And I want to read to you a couple of sections of scripture that aren't too long, but just to give you an idea. These I know were really important things to him. So I want to read them to you. The first part is from 1 Corinthians 15. I'm just going to start at verse 20 through 28. Paul's been speaking about people questioning if Christ had really been resurrected. He said, "But Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. For since death came through a man, the resurrection of the dead comes also through a man. For as in Adam all died, so in Christ all will be made alive, but each in turn. Christ the first fruits, then, when he comes, those who belong to him. Then the end will come when he hands over the kingdom to God the Father, after he has destroyed all dominion, authority, and power. For he must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death. For he has put everything under his feet. Now when he says that everything has been put under him, it is clear that he does not include God himself, who put everything under Christ. When he has done this, then the Son himself will be made subject to him who put everything under him, so that God may be all in all." And then one other section relevant today, 1 Thessalonians 4, 13 through 18. "Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. According to the Lord's word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so will we be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words." And that gives me great encouragement because I know I'm going to see him again. The longest time it will be until I see him again is the rest of my life. Could be tomorrow. If he comes back tomorrow, we might see him then. and he believed that. Anyway, so back to our lives a little bit. He was a great big brother. I always looked up to him, even though we fought a lot. And over TV, I wanted to watch Bewitched, I wanted to watch Rat Patrol or Pokemon High. Yeah, I know how old you guys are, but you are laughing at it. Pulling the wishbone, splitting the wishbone on a chicken. Remember when they used to cut chickens where there was a wishbone? You guys, that's probably don't know what that is. That was always fun. And then one of my favorite things, he'd always pull pranks on me on April Fools. And one year, he didn't do anything. And I was so disappointed, and I was getting ready for bed, I'm in the bathroom, I'm sitting, I think on the toilet, I think I was just sitting there doing something else. And all of a sudden it flushed. And he had rigged up a fishing line, and strung it all the way downstairs, and I was so thrilled because he had not forgotten me on that. Steve always kind of marched to a different drummer, as most of you know, that he never wore bell bottoms, he hated the Beatles. we had different tastes in music. I'm a classical nerd, I play piano, and in high school some. I used to like to listen to Moody Blues and Procol Harum and some of that stuff that he liked, but other than that, you know, we didn't have a lot in common. Although, when we were kids, we had a couple of turtles. He named his Herman, so I named mine Lily, because, you know, the Munsters. And it made him mad because he meant Herman's Hermits. Because there was a song on here in the 80s. So I was always, like I said, pesky little sister doing weird stuff. Anyway, as we got older, we became closer to the point where, well, especially after my dad died, I think, we spoke on the phone several times a week for the last years, and especially through these last 4 crazy years. We talked so many mornings. He'd always call while I was getting ready for work, or if I was in the car on the way to work, and we'd discuss, you know, recent stuff that was going on, and we emailed a lot, and shared memes and articles and research papers and all this and that, and it was pretty crazy, and so I missed that already, terribly. And, one other thing I want to mention, I am wearing red in honor of International Harvester. I know how much you love that. He spent a lot of time on the Red Power Forum. Is anybody here from Red Power Forum?
Yeah, technically.
Okay. He loved that so much. And he had 7,567 posts on the Red Power Forum since 2007. So it was But when he had his kidney surgery last year, I would spy on him right afterwards by going on the forum, and it would say, last on 6 hours ago. And so I knew, I was like, he's been on the Red Power Forum, he's feeling good. So that was kind of how I kept track of him until we talked before. And I'm going to be going on there and reading posts. I've already done that some and read some, and they're so fun. And then I have hundreds of emails, because I never delete stuff like that. I have just years worth of emails. So I'm going back and looking at those. And then one more thing I want to finish with. Last week I found a letter that he wrote to me in October of 1983. And it's really long. I took a scan of it. I didn't want to bring the original, but it's a full 2-sided notebook paper, lined paper, single-spaced, handwritten letter, which is real unusual for either of us to do that. And he wrote me, he started out talking about some Kurt Vonnegut novels he was reading. I evidently recommended one, and he was reading Slaughterhouse-Five and Breakfast of Champions, and we were talking about some of that stuff. And then he got to family. He said, all the girls are doing 100%. Melissa has been spitting out some pretty neat word combinations, especially for a 4-year-old. She also seems to be very much a take charge type person. Kathy told me that today Melissa convinced Kristen that little KT needed her teeth checked. So Kristen opened wide, Melissa probed her teeth thoroughly, and pronounced, "You have 20 fine, beautiful teeth." Pretty good for one so young. Kristen is sleeping without diapers now. And is doing a really good job. She's coming up with interesting conversational, I'm having trouble without my glasses, sorry. She's coming up with interesting conversational gems herself. She can dress herself, potty by herself, if one of us turns on the light. Abby is still growing like a weed. She's already wearing 12 months' clothes and is outgrowing some of them. She's eating a lot of fruit and veggies now. She loves to roll around nude on the carpet, and she growls. I think I remember the growl. No kidding. She can growl from way down deep in her throat, and it is hilarious. And last but not least, Kathy's doing fine. The four of us just about run her ragged. She manages somehow to keep things running, or at least in a fast walk. She's only got 4 or 5 pounds to lose and is really looking good. And then he finished, sent some pictures and all that. But anyway, this is a precious object to me now. And I remember there's a saying about where you work or wherever you go to leave a big hole. And he's left a crater. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You got it. Dry my eyes. Thank you. If you haven't met us in person or seen a million pictures on Facebook, I'm sure you've heard some sort of story about Steve's grandkids. I'm Riley. I'm one of Steve's granddaughters. Grandpa was always so proud of all 8 of his grandchildren, and any picture you see of him with his grandkids, he has the biggest grin on his face. And probably blinking. Slideshow, there's a lot of eyes closed. And if he wasn't in the picture, he was always smiling at the sight of us all together. As I got older, and even more now that he's gone, I realized how proud he was of all of us, and how much he loved having us all together. He always wanted to know when the next time he'd get to see us would be, and now we get to cherish every moment we spend with him. I hope he knows how proud we are of him. He worked so hard and was always so determined at everything he did. He really went above and beyond to be everyone's handyman and never turned down his family when he needed him to fix something. I keep hearing stories about how selfless he was, and I like to believe I've inherited that trait, and I hope to continue his legacy of selflessness throughout my life. He made an effort to take us all individually in the Z to Albany, Missouri, to show us where he grew up and where our moms were born, to see his old friends, and getting his 16-year-old grandson kicked out of a bar. That was news to me yesterday. He wanted to spend quality time with all of his kids and share with us all of his favorite things, and falling asleep during a movie that he started and we had to finish. Whether it was a tractor pull, watching Looney Tunes, a trip to the antique mall, fishing, or telling us a story he would tell like it was the first time he was telling. Even though you had probably heard it like 4 other times, the word for word. He made sure to make a lasting impact within all of us, and I know his light will shine through us all with stories, memories, and of course, laughter. And I hope we can find that dying butterfly that he left, and I mean, it's just like him to leave us with a mystery to solve, so maybe one day, but thank you. Next up, we have Kinsey. Where you at?
For those of you, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Ken Deason. I graduated with Steve. I've known him for almost 60 years. He was best friend and confidant. He could talk to anybody or listen to anybody about any subject and feel comfortable. That was just him. Talking, however, was his strong suit. As a senior in high school, he was voted Elaborator of the Year. And we gave him as a trophy a beef tongue. On stage, right out of the mouth, we gave him that. You'd have thought we gave him money. He was too. I'll just miss hearing you tell me about anything and everything, and laughing with him and at him. My job is just to give you guys some toast here in a minute, if that's cool with you. You ready? To my best friend, Steve, you're more than just a friend, you're my brother. I'm so grateful to have had you in my life. You made me laugh, you made me cry, and you always knew what to do to make me feel better. Rest in peace, my friend. And Kathy and family, don't cry because his part of your life is over. Smile because it happened. Steve, you're here. That's my job.
Thank you, Kim. Vitor.
My name is Vitor. I'm the father of Steve's 4 grandkids, Abby's ex-husband. I remember the first time I ever met Steve. I was 17, only a few months in a new country, dating his daughter for a few weeks. Fairly awkward situation for a young man. But as soon as we shook hands, I felt more relaxed, welcomed, like I was already part of the family. He proceeded to bring out a globe. There was, no iPhones back then. MapQuest wasn't a thing, barely had internet. And had me point out in the globe where my hometown in Brazil was. I don't know if I can think of anybody else my whole life that has ever done that. And there's a lot of questions whenever somebody meets me, like accent, all that, where are you from? I think Steve was the only one that has ever brought out a globe or had pulled out the phone to show where are you from? Where's your city at? He was a really kind and curious man, genuinely interested in a wide array of things, ideas, people. I lost my father when I was 16, only about a year and a half before I met Steve. He was the closest to a second father I've ever had. He showed me by example and inspired me to be the best father, husband, friend, human that I could be. He introduced me to many different things, views, theories, traits, subjects that he would study, practice, and master on his own. Things I'm still trying to figure out the basics of, but that has served me and my family greatly. He arranged a job interview for me that became my first real job and kick-started my career. He helped me with countless cars and houses issues, and there were many of them. Him and Kathy always had their home open to us for anything. He always supported me and my family unconditionally in any way that he could. He did all of this without any hint of wanting or needing anything back. He obviously had an ego, but we all do, but he was never in the way of anything that truly mattered. A life well lived, it's about serving others, while finding a way to make that service build our character, our integrity, our values, all that without forgetting we're also celestial beings. There is more to us than our minds, than our bodies. Steve mastered a life well lived by unrelentlessly serving his family, his friends, his community, and through us here in this room, he spread across the earth. He served the world at large, and he's still serving. He balanced that human celestial existence with ownership and honor. And that is the mission, my friends. He accomplished it. Steve, thank you for sharing your kindness, your wisdom, and your love with us. I love you.
Thank you, Vitor. Next up, we have Steve's oldest daughter, Melissa.
I'm just going to read from the paper. My dad was decidedly anti-fashion. But don't misinterpret that to assume he didn't care what he wore, because he had some really strong opinions. He was the kind of guy to find the perfect rural-looking jeans and buy up a whole stack of them. When he had a pair of work boots that fit and functioned just right, he wanted to hoard another pair or two in reserve in case they were discontinued before his current pair wore out, which is actually really good. He was appalled by the idea of wearing shorts because he didn't like his skinny legs to show, so he wore long pants all summer. He did spend a period of his adult life regularly adorned in professional attire. And at some point in the 90s, my mom tried to relieve the burden of the daily shirt and tie by getting him some trendy gentleman's tees. I don't know if people in the 90s remember the gentleman's tees. But those were a hard pass because they were far too stylish. But when he found a piece that met his idiosyncratic needs, he committed. And it's been funny to go through the pictures. If you haven't had a chance already, have a look, you'll notice some regular repeats. There's the graduation shirt again. And at some point it became a tradition that he would wear the fish shirt for every family Thanksgiving and Christmas gathering. We were fortunate enough to have enough holidays together that the shirt became faded and worn. And having it here today lets me feel like he's here with us. When I was growing up, my dad was extremely outnumbered in our household. There were 4 of us, between my mom, my sisters, and me. Together, some of you have experienced, we are so loud. We have really strong personalities, and sometimes our tempers run hot, and I just bet we're a lot. But my dad didn't just tolerate us, he was completely, unwaveringly committed to supporting us, loving us, even enjoying us in his own authentic way. When my sisters and I had to share a bedroom in our tiny house when we were younger, Dad essentially converted it into a 4-room apartment, sectioned by wooden partitions so that we each had our own space, plus a foyer. I wish I could go back and see that room with my adult eyes. I bet it would be hilariously quirky. But in my memory, it was epic. Once, when I was probably in 5th grade, I ordered a book of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories from the Scholastic catalog. I'm sure I chose it because it looked spooky and fun, and I did not realize what I was getting into. I remember coming home with it, cracking it open, and and feeling so disappointed because it was hard and I couldn't understand anything I was reading. That night, my dad got out his own copy of Poe's short stories, and we sat down in the kitchen and we read it together. He was so patient as I stumbled through, and he defined words and explained concepts I didn't understand. Poe is one of my favorite reads now. Dad was a helper, a problem solver, a fixer. Probably a lot of you knew him in that context. The fixer wasn't his profession. Instead, he built his profession out of this core part of himself. He always came with a tool bag, literally and metaphorically, and he got it out every chance he had. There's no one I've met who's lived their life more authentically than my dad. He was so true to himself, he enjoyed his work, and he surrounded himself with the people he cared about most. This is perhaps what inspires me most about his life and legacy, and I hope we can all tap into that in his honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm just gonna go down the line of the daughters. Middle daughter, Kristen.
Hello. I wasn't going to speak because I'm not the word girl like my sisters are. I'm more the audio visual documenter, and I'm usually hiding behind my camera. Almost brought it over here with me. But anyway, I was going to introduce myself the way my dad would. Anytime he introduced me, I was always not just Kristen, I was his middle daughter, Kristen. And depending on where we were, sometimes I was just Carter's mom. They had a really good relationship. So, I'm the middle daughter. There are 3 of us, all daughters. But it didn't stop Dad from building model airplanes with us, or taking us fishing and to tractor pulls and air shows and all those things that boys do. And we always knew how proud he was of us. If you ever talked to him, he probably told you to, because it was almost embarrassing, like, but he never hesitated to tell a stranger how proud he was of everybody and his family. In the late 80s and early 90s, we were regulars at the movie store. It was like our Friday night ritual. Buckets, anybody remember Buckets? We did that. But, so we'd go to Pizza Hut, and then we'd go to the video store. And Dad was always in charge, pretty much. And we never came home with the new releases. Never. But there were plenty of duds. And we all, we were like, really, this one? And like Riley said, he did usually fall asleep. But we didn't. And it was kind of fun because it gave us obscure references to movies that probably nobody else gets, but my sisters and I, it's our thing. But so he got us hooked on the classics like Young Frankenstein and Men in Tights and Hot Shots, Three Amigos. My sisters and I have been watching stuff, just didn't, to kind of remember him. But so we'll always watch those movies fondly and think of him. It's where we got a weird sense of humor. We're weird. Anyway, so I'm pretty much the family photographer, which puts me in charge of collecting photos for today. There's a lot of work. I take too many. But you'll notice, without having to look too hard, there's a couple of things that repeat. The fish shirt. Melissa's wearing it in tribute. He wore it every holiday, and we loved it. It was our thing. So a lot of the pictures are not from the same day. Seems like, but and there's also a lot of pictures. It was hard for me to find pictures of him not holding a kid. Some kid, us when we were younger, and then my 20-year-olds whenever they were younger, and then Lennon, who's 3. He never turned down the opportunity to spend time with them. And he also had a thing where he didn't just like carry the kids around, he would hold them out, facing out. And he always said he did it so they could see the world. And he wanted them to see the world. And I'm just so glad that we had that time with him, and that he had all the time with his kids and grandkids that he didn't have. Anyway, I'm not going to keep it as long as my sisters. I was going to keep it short like my dad would have.
Thank you, Kristen. Last but not least, we have the youngest daughter. Right, Father's Joy. Co-scripted. Abby.
You'll recognize some of what I'm about to say because my sisters, as usual, beat me to it. My sisters and I were children of the 80s, which means the rules were a little different than they are today. But we were also the children of Steve Scott, which means the rules were really, really different. When he discovered that cramming 3 feisty little girls into the small backseat of our 1977 Toyota Corona wagon would lead to a lot of what he referred to as squawking, he used PVC pipe to build me my own personal third row. Safety be damned. I lived. And Melissa already told you about the plywood and 2x4s he used to turn a single bedroom into 3 apartments and a living room for my sisters and me. My dad was an engineer at heart, and as I've worked with nuclear and mechanical engineers over the course of my career, I've often wondered why Dad never pursued that line of work. He had the same technical and analytical skills as an engineer, and his brain was wired to find creative solutions to difficult problems. He could have made it far as a highly paid engineer at some big company, I think to myself, instead of pushing his body so hard building and repairing things for other people. Why didn't he? All I have to do to answer that question is think about the stereotypical engineer. Smart, innovative, and wired to solve problems, like Dad, but they also tend to be awkward conversationalists, uncomfortable in social settings, and much happier working by themselves, unlike my dad. When we were very young, Kristen and I both asked for pet mice. Don't ask me how we got Mom to agree. Mine was a tiny brown mouse named Amber Sarah Scott. I'll let you put those initials together. I think I was too young to have done it intentionally, but who knows. And Kristen's was a big, fat, black and white male named Richard Allen Thomas. Kristen did think those initials were spelled rats, but for those of you who don't know, that's also the full name of our Uncle Rick. That's here. Rick, you'll have to take that with Kristen because I didn't have anything to do with that. Amber and Rick lived in 5-gallon buckets, which they frequently tried to escape when you have fuel in a bucket. And one day, Rick the Mouse did what Rick did best. He disappeared. My dad went on a mission to find the missing mouse. He looked and looked, but Rick was nowhere to be found. Finally, he paused and said, "If I were a mouse, where would I be?" He then made a beeline for the living room recliner, and sure enough, Rick was hiding underneath. I share this story not to make Uncle Rick wonder why his beloved niece would name her fat little mouse after him, but to highlight my dad's incredible capacity for empathy, for reframing a problem from a different perspective. He enjoyed the challenge of finding creative solutions and fixing things, but what really drove him was using his unique abilities to make life better for other people and mice. There was no limit to his love, and I think the thing that he loved building most of all was a bridge connecting himself to others. In the end, he did become an engineer. But as with everything, he did it his way. So, now I'd like everyone, this is the official toast that you see on the program. We tried to time it. To raise a glass to the man that everyone in this room was lucky enough to call father, son, brother, husband, friend. Did I miss anything? Grandpa. Brother-in-law. He was a lot of things to a lot of people, and we're going to miss him so much. But this is to Steve. To Steve. Thank you all for being here.
Something I forgot to tell you, I had a lot of things on my list that I didn't say. But you might not have known that Steve was a published author. I don't know what year this happened, it's sometime in high school. He liked to shoot, and in the living room of our house, or the dining room of our house, he had, I don't know if it was a new rifle or not, but he was aiming out the patio door at a tomato in the neighbor's garden. And he shot it. The gun was loaded and went through the glass. Didn't shatter the entire door, just made a hole. I don't know if he hit the tomato or not. But after that, he wrote a very thoughtful, very long letter. Do you have it, Kathy?
Probably somewhere.
Somewhere. To Field and Stream magazine. And they published it. So he was.
Even aiming at a tomato.
Yeah, tomato. So, I thought, so Abby, that's where you get, you know that already. And Melissa, the skill with words. Anyway, I just thought that was a good story, and I forgot to tell you.